So what would you like to talk about? What's on your mind?
I haven't quite finished it up, but I've got the RPR that we're supposed to be working on. And it really struck me as interesting this week, so I think it might be helpful to talk about. Last week on Monday, Penny came with me on my first visits at the hospital. And the first one was a family taking mom, grandma off life support. And we walked with the family through that. And it was really interesting. They had the family step outside when they took the ventilator tube out and everything. And then the family came back in, but they requested to leave the monitor on. So the focus became almost like watching, waiting for grandma to die kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was trying to process that during that whole thing. And then from my old church, we had a member find out that she has terminal cancer, and they gave her about 4 weeks. And she's in this hospice unit in North Carolina. So my wife and I went down to visit her, and her husband and son were there, and her son and I had played ball together. I mean, we've known them for 40 years, had a long history with this family. And she made the comment, you know, well, people are coming to see me and it's nice, but I'm really just here waiting to die.
Yeah.
And so that theme again of that time between knowing death is imminent to actual death. And with the one that pulled the life support, it was just a very sweet, like, she had 2 granddaughters there, and Penny and I had met them earlier, and then they went through this time of being emotional. Well, then after they pulled the life support, they came back in the room, and they started sharing stories about grandma, and they were laughing, and it was joyful, you know. And then the end came, and they, you know, they kind of got quieter and emotional again, but it was just like this holy, sacred time, I felt like. But what about that, you know, that gap? How do we navigate? Like, I just didn't know what to say to the lady that's the friend of ours. You know, if she's got 3 more weeks, she doesn't like the taste of any food, she, you know, all her family's having to be here and just watch her die kind of thing is, you know, what can we say in that time, or other than just being with somebody? You know, what do we have to offer at that point? So that's kind of been.
So in your visit with her, was she giving off any clues to what she wants or needs, or?
I mean, no, she's comfortable, and she's surrounded by family. She has 2 sons. They were both there. They've been down. Probably 10 or 12 couples from our church have been down. I mean, she's comfortable. I think she's at peace, you know, and actually her son said that he was praying that she would just pass peacefully. It's tough to know where to stand with that, you know, as far as, we know it's in God's hands, but do we then take away the potential for something miraculous to happen, depending on, you know, I don't know. It's just been interesting so far already. I've been assigned the CCU floor at the hospital. So obviously this is gonna be something that I'm gonna see quite a bit. And yeah, it's just been really something that's on my heart as far as that little gap in time between whatever that is, between I know I'm at the end, but I'm not quite at the end. And how I know the patient's thinking, how do I navigate this well? And I'm thinking, how do I help you, like, navigate this well?
So I think those are marvelous questions.
Yeah.
And gosh, you know.
Sorry, that's probably a lot right off the bat to say, but.
No. Well, I mean, it strikes me that this is something that you have some sensitivity for. You know, I'll wonder about, you know, what's the what's the genesis of that sensitivity? We'll come back to that. But yeah, that's a marvelous question, you know, of a person who knows they're dying, and they're just kind of waiting for the event.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Like Paul shares with Timothy, you know, I have run the race.
yeah.
I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. What's it look like to finish well? I guess that's part of what I'm trying to discern is,
So have you thought about how you would answer that for yourself?
yeah, I actually put on the RPR, I would almost pray that I am not in that position, because I think it would be really tough, yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously you would want to have everyone you're really close to there and be able to say what you want to say.
Mhm.
But at the same time, yeah, what does it look like in that time to finish well, you know? So just one of those simple
Yeah,
questions.
it's one of those simple ones. So, you know, I guess maybe part of me would want to ask my friend, what's left? What, is there anything that's a holdover? Is there something that's, you know, you wish you had said to someone, or anything, you know, what's unfinished for her, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, those,
And I think that's a great question, because we were there and we were talking, and she was very helpful in me discerning my call. She was always very affirming of my
Yeah.
gifts. And she said one thing, and at one point she was like, the only thing that tastes good to me right now is ice cream. And I said, well then eat all the ice cream you want. I mean, you know, eat ice cream. That's awesome. So, yeah, I think that's a good thing of what's left, you know. Is there something that you need to say or do, or in her case it wouldn't be do as much because but yeah. I thought at the one where the family was gathered and she had come off life support and they were all just waiting. I don't sing very well. If other people are singing, I'll sing with them, but I thought, man, what a great time to just maybe have a song or have something where you just don't know if she can hear or not hear, but that would just be really cool instead of, you know, everybody just standing there watching the TV waiting for the line to flatten, you know. I don't know. I felt great about that experience with that family, but that part was the part that kind of made me a little anxious, like.
now, are you normally anxious around silence or gaps in
Oh, no,
conversation
no, no,
or anything like that?
no,
Okay.
No, silence is my friend.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a strong I, yeah. So, silence and reflection is fine, but it felt weird, like the reason for the silence. It wasn't like a time of prayer or something like that. It was just kind of like, beep, beep. You know, like, okay, they pulled the plug, now, you know, I don't know. And then, but at the end, at the inevitability, you know, the final, now she's dead, the nurse comes in, yes, she's dead. Then there's emotion again. That wasn't there 10 seconds
Right.
ago.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the experience of learning to navigate death up close and personal is going to be an important part of this for me, because it's something that I don't have a lot of experience with at all. Like my grandparents, you know, 3 of my 4 grandparents have passed away. I still have one, but I wasn't there. Like, you know, I wasn't in the room. Probably the closest experience I've had before is with like pets or whatnot, you know, so, yeah, so my first day of CPE, I'm in the room when somebody passes, so. But I think, yeah, I think there's something that'll be very holy and sacred about sharing those moments.
So did the death of that person stimulate anything inside of you that, you know, you had your questions going in, I wonder what it's like, or I wonder how I'm gonna respond? What was?
She was really unresponsive, almost looked like she had had a stroke, so she was kind of kicked back, her mouth was kind of open, so there wasn't a lot of visible change in life and death, like, you know what I mean? She was already kind of there. So, I think it was more so evaluating all the people in the room.
So, if I'm hearing you right, you had less focus on her actual death as much as the emotions, the reactions of those who were in the room. Is that right?
I found myself, yeah, death is inevitable for her right now, and we're just all kind of, so rather than focus on when the machine hit the last bleep for her, I tried to focus on the room and who was experiencing what, to kind of inform me more about the family's experience. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening in there, you know, that a lot of times I think we probably don't pay attention to because we're so focused. And that was part of like what we were talking about earlier. I think sometimes we're so focused on the patient, and sometimes in the patient state, there's not a lot care-wise that we can offer, but for the family, there's probably a lot, and we probably miss some of the signs of that. So what's it look like to do it all well? So trying to gauge the room of, you know, who's really struggling, who's not struggling, why are they not struggling, you know, that type of thing, so. Yeah, and also, in relation with that, I think I had a really, after the first week of CPE, if I can walk into this room with somebody that I don't know at this crucial time in their life and offer care, I should be in a mood of 24/7, 365 care to everybody. It's the same. They're just not in that room. You know what I mean? So it's been kind of a switch of, you're offering care all the time.
Yeah, so you mentioned the different, I think it was you different, or was it Rebecca? Rebecca talked about the difference between pastor and chaplain. And so, yeah, this is a great experience and opportunity to integrate those two.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that they're at least in my experience, clean and fine cuts and divisions between the two. But of course, you know, what you're taking from your interactions with patients in the hospital is yeah, what am I learning from this experience, and how do I apply this to the totality of my ministry? That's the purpose of CPE. So you're already, you know, envisioning, you know, those crucial questions you ask yourself. And I think you know, being able to observe self and ask those questions during those times is really, I think, will serve you well in your learning. So what does this, if I can be here with this person who I don't know, and provide some level of care for them, then can I take this experience with me the next time I'm in with Linda or somebody else who needs good care?
mean, I think to me, the biggest difference is not so much that I know the congregant going in ahead of time, even though that's a plus, but once you visit with somebody for a little bit, you kind of know them, at least a little. The difference is, I'm gonna be offering care to this person in the hospital for maybe an hour or two, and then I'm
Yeah.
not really gonna probably interact with them again.
Yeah.
Whereas a congregant, I need to be able to offer care, but also, how is this experience gonna change pastoral care for them going forward? You know, what care will they now need? So
Well,
it's more of
to a
a,
relationship,
yeah, it's
pastoral
more of
relationship.
like a longer term
Sure,
thought of
absolutely.
care, as opposed to, how can I give really good care for the next couple hours to this family in their time of need? As opposed to, this is somebody that I'm gonna be caring for ongoing. So there's a little bit, I think, of a different dynamic there.
Yeah. Are you open to some reflection on your verbatim?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
One of the things that I think comes with time, but it's, I would appreciate somebody telling me this early in my time doing this kind of thing too. And part of the discussion that we have is how do I learn information about this person? So when you write the verbatim, at least the conversation that you wrote today, there's a lot that's missing, which is the how did I learn this about
Yeah.
this person, or
Yeah.
this was a need. So it makes it look like you have an assumption of what a person needs.
Right.
Okay, so I would just be really, I really encourage you to write some of the parenthetical statements. Your inner dialogue.
Right.
Okay, like, yeah. So I'm wondering what it means that Linda's stroking her sister's arm and straightening up.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the Mary and Martha story, which I think is a really good theological reflection. So, so I don't want, I wouldn't want for myself any time where I'm assuming that I know what a person wants or needs.
Right.
And so, being able to, there was something, well, I guess the first instance was, okay, how do I know Clarence?
Right.
Really needs to take better care of himself. Maybe he's taking 3 naps a day, at the chair next to his wife's bed. You don't know. Maybe he's enjoying the interaction with other people.
Right.
So, I never want to jump to that assumption right away, but I want to check it out with people.
I mean, on those two in particular, I had just got to that church when Linda lost her mom.
Yeah.
So I knew she was processing grief already, because she had told me she'd become a widow, and now she's lost her mom, and she was actually the one that told me she was worried for Clarence too.
Okay.
So I did kind of know that before I got there.
Okay.
Um,
But it'll help your reader.
So they know.
So
Yeah,
they know
yeah.
that too. Okay.
And which I definitely, it's hard to capture everything.
I know it
verbatim,
is.
Short
I know
of,
it is.
taping it.
Yeah.
Do y'all mind if I, but, yeah, so, and because we all take our own, then I take my own bias into what was important and what wasn't important into the conversation as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and in a 20-minute visit, it's hard to,
So what efforts, how do we manage our assumptions? How do we manage our biases? that's a question I take with me every day. Am I engaging this person because I find that this person's attractive, or that this person is funny, this person is, whatever. Am I avoiding, a deeper conversation with another because of something else? So we all have these biases that come with us. So we talk about regulating anxiety. I think there's also a way to regulate our bias. And sometimes it's the same tools, at least it is for me. So being able to ask questions.
Yep.
I don't know what that looks like for you, or how you might respond to that thought.
I found so far in the hospital that I try not to assume anything, and kind of reinforce and ask permission for everything. So in other words, if you tell me da 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 da, say, okay, this is what I heard you, this is where
the
you're
reflective listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also have really tried so far, and in pastoral care as well, not to use I very much, as far as this is what I think, or this is what I experience, because it's about them, it's not about me. Yeah. So I try not to bring, because I know I have, biases, and I've been formed a certain way, and that is not the same for everybody, so I don't want to bring that into, yeah.
And sometimes
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the bias is what I expect of myself too.
Right.
I think Kenton's presentation this morning on triangles was starting to get at that expectation piece a little bit, but particularly I think for pastors. He was responding to one of the other students' questions, I think, and the student was asking about responding to direct question with giving advice. And I think, boy, the less advice I give, the better off my ministry is with anybody.
But I mentioned that in class. When I was teaching and coaching in the high school,
Yeah, you did.
I constantly got asked for advice, but it was in a way of, hey, I respect you, I respect the way you live. What would you do in this situation? And in that sense, to a 15 to 18-year-old, I think it was important to give advice,
Mm-hmm.
At least this is what I have found. Now, you need to find for yourself, but
Right.
But yeah, now pastoring, that's a whole
It's a
different,
different-
it's a whole different ballgame, yeah. So I try not to, offer personal advice. I will say, well, this is the way I read this verse to say.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think the more I can stay out of, Kenton calls it either the push or pull position. And advice giving has that quality. My advice is to move you into this position rather than the position that you're in now.
Right.
So, being able to get out of the push or pull and more into the question of how can I help this person with the resources they already have available to them, come to their own decision, their own conclusion. Whether I think it's right or wrong, is really immaterial.
Right.
But if they ask me if I think it's right or wrong, I would say, well, my thinking is different than your thinking on this. But it's not easy.
Well, and I feel like it's a different responsibility than what I had before as well. Because when I'd be talking to a 15-year-old kid whose dad's in jail and mom's, them getting some good information and good advice, and you could even take it to some levels with some of the kids, almost parenting, that they weren't getting somewhere else. So that's a little bit different dynamic than pastoring. But at the same time, how can I, like coaching, how can I bring out the best without forcing, Because there is an element, I think, of that in the pastoral part of how can I help you get to the best decision for you, whether I agree with it or not.
Yeah.
Without putting my bias into that at all. I think that's a challenge.
It is a challenge for everybody, and I've been at this a long time, and it remains a challenge.
So we've talked about death and my bias. So two small subjects for this first time. Yeah, thanks.
But, as we talk about this, anytime we raise an issue together in supervision, I would invite you to, as an opportunity to think, can I develop a guiding principle around death?
Mm-hmm.
Can I develop a guiding principle that helps me to manage my implicit bias or my explicit bias? And I think that's the value of the conversations is, my vision for my ministry as a supervisor is really to help you to be as clear about your ministry, what you want to learn, and how to take your learning and apply it to your ministry. And so, but you're in control of your learning. I do if I spoon feed you, then I'm not doing my job.
Right. Yeah, that's the good part.
Well, it is. It is, but
To trudge through with help.
With help. But frankly, it also really allows us to have some really good conversations and some important conversations.
I think it'll be helpful. I'm sure this week there'll be something new at the hospital that I've never experienced before. So.
Yeah, so the unusual thing is that for you, and I guess, just one of the things that I also invite you to think about how you're going to use your resources that are available to you is that while I'm your CBE supervisor, I'm not in the hospital with you.
Right.
So Penny is. So, how to use Penny as a resource that aids your learning and helps you in the hospital. I had one student, a summer program in 2017, summer 2017. And he was, I supervised him, but I was not in the hospital with him. And so one of the things that we continued to talk about during that time was, he would go to Penny with, immediate issue. And I understood that. But at the same time, he also felt like, gosh, that really short circuits my supervision relationship with Bill. So I eventually he found a balance there. But
right.
I would just put that out there to say that I'm not going to in any way discourage you from going to Penny for anything that's immediate and that kind of thing. But I also don't want it to short circuit any of the conversation that we might have, and how you balance that up.
Definitely.
So you've also got Robin over there, the other volunteer chaplains and your colleagues, and so you've got a lot of dynamics with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But I guess I also want to be protective of, and maybe that's my issue. I want to be protective of supervision.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, it's probably just, me letting you know what's going on, so, we can do that for sure.
Okay.
Especially, like, being in the room when somebody comes off life support for the first time, like, that was the profound thing last week, and I would say, some visits are gonna be more routine, and
Yeah.
that was Monday with Penny, and Tuesday I went in, and the very first call was to a room where the family was coming in to do the same thing, but they weren't there yet, so I just went in, I met who was there, and I prayed with them. But then, it was probably another 10 hours before the rest of the family got there, so I really don't know what happened, but, so yeah, it was like from the frying pan right into the fire, so, but I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be learned there and
It's
reflected on.
experiential learning at its best.
Exactly, so just get over just go in the room, see what happens.
So the other thing I would like to really be clear about, and I know this past week has been really like full for you, but if you can get your process reflections to me, send them to me in an email, with an
Okay.
email attachment before we meet, that would be helpful. And I'll do my best to write some notes back to you.
Okay.
Well, mostly questions that I'll
Yeah.
write for your thinking.
That's fine.
So if you get those to me.
Are the goals something that we're working on over time, or is that?
Well, yeah, so if we could,
We had one last week, but I
right.
think we're working towards 3 to 5.
Yeah,
or
3 to
something.
5. So by the next time we meet, if you got a draft of your learning covenant, I think that would be great. And we can talk about that, and if there's anything else that you need to do on that, we'll do it. Again,